Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes, we are live for session number 16 of the Galfond Challenge match between Phil Galfond and Actionfreak. And Phil coming into today up 271k total with just 4,000 hands of the challenge remaining. Today in the commentary booth, I am joined by a man from the Windy City, the Gordon Ramsay of the poker world, a Run It Once elite coach, the first official ambassador for Run It Once, and all-round crusher of the game, Kevin Rabichow. How you doing, man?
Great. Phil bet pot on table 1 in a 3-bet pot, and Actionfreak just calls.
He did, and I assume he's not going to slow down on the 3 of clubs turn. Freak going to have a lot of top pairs, middle pairs with some backdoors that obviously don't improve on the 3 of clubs, really just leveraging his overpair range advantage. And
yeah, that 3 I suppose about as blank as it comes, but does Actionfreak have any like strong hands really here?
I mean, if Freak's got like a middle pair with backdoor clubs, I think he's probably just going to pile and go with it on this board. Instead, he's
well, there he goes with the king and a wrap.
Yeah, and Phil with top 2. They are going to chop that one up. First 60k pot of the day. I didn't know that they were running it twice. Maybe.
Yeah, that just threw me, huh?
What on earth just happened? Wait a minute.
Did they know they were running it twice?
No, I'm assuming.
From what Run It Once Nick is sending us, it sounds like this was a new feature that just got implemented today in the software, and it maybe just caught them by surprise.
Okay, right. Well, I mean, listen, I'll take it. Phil being gifted a second run out, and although he did get it in good, he would have lost the 60k pot had it only been run once. So maybe a little bit of run good there for Phil, in the sense that it's that newly implemented onto these tables. I wonder if Rob Young's going to get any angry tweets from not tweets, emails from Actionfreak or Phil. Give Rob a call.
So I was pretty caught off guard there, but Phil did have top 2. Was that right? He had
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
King Queen 9-8 on a King 8-4 rainbow, turn 3 of clubs. As you mentioned, Freak turning the wrap to go along with his top pair, top kicker. Wow, that really caught me off guard for a minute. I was like, hang on, am I grinding or am I doing the Galfond challenge?
Phil here with another one. Check pot on the Ace River. I mean, is Freak? What kind of value hands is Freak potting on the river besides Queen Jack, obviously?
I guess we could have some 2 pairs with like a Jack blocker or a 4 or a 5 blocker. Yeah. Also have 4-5 as well. I mean, the flops King 3 Deuce Rainbow. We're definitely going to have some 45s in our value range on the river. And also, I mean, 4-5 in a really grim spot here versus the check pile from Phil. 4-5 does call it off. Phil running it with the naked queen blockers.
It is what it is. Like, you're just supposed to have like a weak hand that wants to put in a small amount of money and set their price. But when perhaps in adjustment to facing a bunch of raises, maybe you're not finding enough calls, maybe not finding enough bluff catches with weak hands, then those raises can really be a nightmare. Like, the good player, like someone like Freak, who responds with just a bunch of raising, maybe thinner for value, lots of bluffs. If we don't respond appropriately, then the frequency just keeps going up. We get raised more and more and more, and we have to do something about that.
So yeah, for sure.
That's certainly going to be part of it, is getting in those block bets with really strong hands. Maybe even block betting with some hands that aren't supposed to block bet that just make for really easy calls when they get raised.
That's exactly what Richard was getting into, because the way the hand had played out, it was one of those spots where Phil had a massive polarity range advantage, and the moment that Phil bet that sizing, Richard was like, "No, I really don't like this. We're meant to bet full pot here." And
Mhm.
Richard was quite confused, and then when he saw the injuries, he was like, "Oh, that on the fly adjustment from Phil. Love to see it."
Yeah.
Phil in a pretty tough spot here. With his overpairs, 3-bet pot check called half pot on the flop, facing a half pot turn sizing freak, setting up a very natural SPR of just shy of 1 going to the river.
So Phil, when Phil's bluff catching here on the turn, I guess he's trying not to have too many like 8, 9, 10 kind of side cards going on. Is that sort of the
Ooh,
bluff catching situation he's in there? Oh, that's an interesting one.
freak got there with the 85 on the river.
As I watch, and maybe I'm just skewed by how in the last hour they've only gotten it in once
Mm.
in a situation, but like I'm starting to think that it actually doesn't change variance that much because so many hands are just not going to be all in.
Mm.
And even if they are all in, like a lot of times they're all in at the river, so there's no chance to run it twice. Like it's only specifically the scenarios where like they get it in on the flop and both players have equity. Those
That's a
are
good point.
those are like the primary situations because like they almost never get it in pre. They like when it's 3 or 4 bet, they occasionally get it in on the flop, and then they like somewhat often get it in on the turn. But yeah, there's just like not that many scenarios where all the money goes in with equity to be split with an opportunity to run it twice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be really interested in looking at the math on that one. But yeah, you make a great point that a lot of the money is going in on the river. But we I mean, if you've got like Ace King King Jack, well, actually, let's just jump
As
into.
I say that, the money is starting to go in on the turn, and both players very likely have equity.
Yeah, and I mean, it's got what half pot. So check raise versus a half pot sizing from Phil, and wow, freak up to no
Pretty
good.
interesting. There's a lot of like cognitive bias to which size you pick with which type of hand.
I think that's been the most interesting thing for me in this challenge is just yeah the leveling that seems to be going on, and in terms of sizing. We've had Phil on, some post-match interviews, and recently not so much due to the fact that there's obviously still a lot of money on the line with future matches, and we don't want Phil to be giving away uh, too
Yeah.
much information because he loves to talk about it. That's just how passionate about the game is when we do get him on a call and ask him a question, he'll go into detail. Just going to jump back into the action on the 9-7 deuce because 3-bet pot, continue for half pot, a board where the money is going to go in a lot of the time. Freak's got an overpair with some backdoor spades, some like ace 6-5, some 10-8s with overpairs as well. Gonna go in the
Phil
middle.
not actually clicking pot here, is that right? So is he going to have some raise folds?
I think he's just setting up a very natural turn jam at like a 1 SPR. As to
So
whether or
like
not he has
I
some raise
suppose,
folds,
yeah. I guess if he has like a really strong like a top set kind of hand, then he doesn't mind setting a bit cheaper price for like just king king or ace ace to peel with no backup.
that's see you getting the hang of this, Kevin. Just getting the old king to put money in when it's just like dead against your.
I mean, it's like it's just interesting to me that certainly Phil could have raised pot and committed, and with certain hands he probably will want to do that, right? But when he chooses like a 3x raise sizing, it seems more like he has like kind of a polarized like my hand is ridiculously strong, or I'm actually considering like bluff raise folding with like a I don't know, like an what would you do that with 988 or something maybe.
No, yeah, I don't know if we'd want to ever turn
I'm totally
top.
guessing at
No,
combinations, but
no.
like, you know what I
I know.
mean? Like just kind of putting in arrays with solid blockers, like a hand that makes it quite unlikely that we get 3-bet shoved on.
Yeah. So something like 9-8-8 with like the naked ace of diamonds, like blocking nut diamonds, so that Freak can't ever pile on us with the nut
Mhm.
flush draw or something along those lines. So
Yeah, and something
makes
that's like
sense.
not a clear call, like something that doesn't hate folding away its equity because, peeling the c-bet is just like kind of sketchy.
Yeah, and also hands that are just going to be really tough to play turns on as well. Freak drilling this river, I feel. 15k in the middle, 3-bet pot.
Third
Phil.
pot from Phil.
Yeah, I don't like this river for Phil. It could obviously just be completely wrong, and he just shows up with like king, queen, 10 with
It
diamond.
feels more likely that he's connected maybe by making like top 2 or a straight than making a flush, I
Yeah,
suppose.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going for.
So I mean, he checks here, so he seems to agree. I imagine that puts Freak in a comfortable position to bet really big with basically any flush.
Yeah, he can also have some very easy check calls as well. Some like ace jacks with like a 10 or a king with a decent heart blocker. And it could also just be giving Freak some rope.
Yeah, if he did land here with like the total monster on the turn that had nut hearts and whatever, like ace jack and nut hearts, or like ace ace and nut hearts, obviously that could be here, but well, he probably would have jammed by now if he had that hand.
Yeah, and Freak taking another chunky pot down on the river. If you've seen
I
Kevin's Instagram, if you put up a YouTube channel where you're doing these cooking tutorials, I think you'd quickly retire from poker.
I think that I'm pretty happy with the limited attention, like the Instagram photo only attention that I'm giving, because that already takes like more hours than I'm proud of. And for like almost nothing. If I was doing a cooking stream, oh god. Like I wouldn't play poker anymore.
STA
And I would
says you
probably
should.
get like 100 viewers asking me
No.
how to make eggs every time.
STA Sailor with a bit of wordplay on your name, saying you should open a fast food restaurant called Kevin's Rapid Chow. I like it. I like it. I could see.
I have heard that all good business ideas start with a pun.
Well, there you go. I saw a gentleman on some British television quiz show. Who's a doctor, and his dream was to open up a restaurant. And they asked him, "Oh, if you win, money today, what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "Well, I'd like to open a restaurant." They're like, "What are you gonna call it?" And he's like, "Doctor's Orders." I was like, "See, it's just brilliant."
He was so sure. He knew exactly. That's really what guides people on the path to their dreams, I suppose. They get that one idea, and it's just like
It
it's so
sticks.
convincing. A name like that is convincing enough to map out someone's life.
Yeah, it just sticks. Wow, Phil drilling this ace 8 of diamonds river.
Yeah,
The
that's got
board.
to be a good. I mean, interesting spot for sure. If presuming he gets checked too, he has a availability of bluffs, I imagine, with hands like Queen 7 or King 7.
Yeah, that's obviously going to be what I think comes down to Freak's river decision whether he calls or not. If he has the nut flush with a king or a queen blocker, we probably have to cycle.
Right. He's trying to, I guess, the more realistic way is for Phil to make a full house to the 8 is by having a king or a queen in his hand as well.
Yeah, and also with well, actually, I was going to say whether we jam here with 7s, we probably still do. SPR 0.75 after being checked to versus a pretty clear flush in
Yeah, and I
terms
would
of
think that,
what Freak was trying to represent on future prior streets.
yeah, that pot bet on the turn would be pretty hard for him to have like queens or kings in that line.
Yeah, it really just does come down to what Freak's danglers are. We're in a really grim spot if we just have the naked nut flush or jack high flush here with no pair blockers.
I mean, there's also a matter of just like kind of trying to figure out Phil's relative frequencies. Like his blockers are relevant, but this is also an opportunity for Freak to maybe make an exploit and just, see if he can kind of count up the reasonable ways for Phil to find the bluffing combos and for Phil to find the value combos and see if he thinks he's just getting the right price to call with any nut flush.
Ah, he does call
Wow.
no pair blocker nut
Yeah.
flush. Yay, Phil with the second nut boat. And Freak, I mean, going deep into the tank there, Kevin, understandably so, having the naked nut flush with no blocker assist, a tough spot, but I think at SPR 0.75, it's as you
Yeah,
mentioned,
it
if,
seems like he's giving credit. That like he's basically giving Phil credit for just
yeah,
having at least the right number of bluffs and maybe more.
yeah, for sure. Phil certainly not one to shy away from turning, the best bluff candidate into a bluff if he shows up at river with some weak flush that he assumes is no good, but also has like a hand with like queen 7 or king queen or king 7,
Mhm.
where he's obviously blocking a ton of the boats available. Phil not trigger shy when the timing calls for a good bluff.
Another big pot on run it twice. Phil calling flop, and then the full pot bet on the turn with a lot of money behind by Freak. Lots of ways for Freak to have equity here. Could be on the flush draw, could be wrapped to the jack. But his 3-bet range has a lot of different hand classes here. Pretty interesting to find out which ones are going pot and which ones are using that more blocker oriented sizing. But presumably the diamonds were not a problem for Freak. So at least one of those in his hand. And the 5 river is definitely interesting.
Looks
Both
like I'm
players are, oh yeah, welcome back right in time.
big pot. What's happened, Kevin? Who's
Freak had the lead all the way to the river there. Oh, and it just goes check, check. Ace, pair of
it
aces with missed diamonds.
against top 2 on the flop? Was it ace 9 with a turn open ender?
Yeah, turned open ender. Freak went full pot on the turn after half potting the flop. So he just went to commit the full, whatever it was, 200, 175 big blinds or so there. Well, Chris Jordan asking if we think work ethic is a determining factor or if raw intelligence is more important. I would argue that work ethic has shown to be far more important in almost all success stories in poker.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. obviously there are many talented players out there, but that just have that natural killer instinct and understanding of the game. But a lot of the people that stay in this game for, let's say more than 3 years, a lot of it tends to come down to just a insane work ethic.
Yeah, I think there's like there were a lot of players who were successful for brief periods of time based on natural talent or intelligence or whatever you want to call it. But like you said, if you want to make a career and play for a lifetime, you got to just want to keep getting better and keep outworking your opponents. There's really no better way to do it than that.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I started getting quote unquote good at the game when I just started listening a lot more and reaching out to my peers and just getting different insights to the game rather than just going around thinking I knew it all. It was one of my biggest downfalls for the first few years of trying to make it in poker. Right, do you want me to name my top 3?
I think I think you should. I just got my partner's texting me ideas in the back. She's saying like, "Oh, Giant wasn't as good recently as it used to be." Apparently, she's been more recently than I have. But
Okay.
um, why don't we alternate? Why don't you
Okay.
give me one? I said
All right.
Giant. I'll stand by that one, even though apparently it's gone down in quality.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Maple and Ash.
Ooh, I know that one. That's a good one.
It's just, I mean, it's just amazing. I'll tell you what else is amazing. The Freak finding a check rip on this Deuce of Hearts river. Looking at the size of the pots, a single raise pot continue for 2/3. So check, bet, call. Damn it, Henry! I was literally about to say 8-4 is the best hand to turn into a bluff here. Freak.
Wow.
Oh, Phil calling too quickly to give you my moment. God damn it, Phil.
Well, there's a lot of opportunity within the industry. So, why leave the industry that you know so much about? Like anyone who's been playing as long as I have, and I don't know if the person who asked the question has been playing for as long as I have, but
Mm,
if you've been in an industry as long as I have, you know a lot about it. And it's I kind of come to the place where like it's a bit of a shame to just like package that all up and throw it away and not do anything with it.
100%. I mean, it's so tough to get X amount of the way up a mountain and then going all the way back down to take another route, especially once you, like you said, you've been in it for a certain amount of time. And with the way that poker is transforming on a global platform and it's getting more and more mainstream coverage in terms of it now being seen as a sport, more TV time, it is an exciting to be part of. I think a lot of the poker players that burn out and decide to exit poker have failed somewhere across. So I'm not saying this about everyone because I know there are several people that have called it a day because they were just really excited about doing something else. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of people forget to find the balance away from the grind, just like enjoy the life EV that comes with winning a bunch of money in, your early 20s or late 20s that a lot of people our age don't have the opportunity to get. And by that, I mean, like you said, like going out for nice food, traveling, just getting them stories, them experiences, jumping out of planes, scuba diving, all that shit
Mhm.
has to be done if you want to,
Have
you
you
know,
jumped out of a plane?
I have indeed. I have indeed. It's
Where did you do it?
Chicago, of
Oh,
all
really?
places. Yeah, it was quite funny because I was the last person to jump out, so I heard every single person scream before. I don't know how to explain it, man.
I think that might have been the same. I've only done it once. I think it might have been the same.
Oh wow, Phil with
Hold
the
that
check
thought though,
grip
Phil, piling it in.
and both draw.
Uh,
They're going to chop this one up.
Yeah.
Freak with the diamonds.
They both had redraws,
They
different
did.
ones, but nothing comes. So it's not recommended that you skydive if you're feeling sick, if your sinuses are stuffed. And the day before, I was like, I definitely couldn't go if it was today. And then the day of, I was like, I'm feeling like a little bit better. So basically, like all of my nervousness about the skydive was entirely related to whether I was going to rupture my eardrums. And like I
Oh.
had no fear about the fact that we were 18,000 feet in the air about to like jump out of a plane. Like I was like, oh, that's fine. Like my logical brain took over that part. It was like you're not going to die of this, but you might rupture your eardrums by being an idiot.
Dude.
But fortunately, they didn't.
You rolled the dice on that one.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I went up. I mean, if I was like legitimately like stuffed and sick, I think I would have skipped it. Like being
Yeah.
a smart person and not wanting to injure myself over a recreational activity, but it was, yeah, the view was worth it. The view was super cool. You don't often get to slowly parachute down, with no walls, with no glass, with no whatever, and see the scenery.
Yeah, I can imagine jumping out of a plane in New Zealand is probably well worth the views, as you said.
The what do you call it? The instructor, like you go tandem, right? If you're not
Yeah.
like licensed to do it. So the guy who I jumped with, like he did the same annoying shit, like just, rock you up to the edge of the plane and then he's like, you ready to go? And then like before you even answer, he's just like out the
Yeah.
door.
I think that's they probably get a massive kick out of that, because especially of tandem jumps, because the majority of people are first time jumpers, so it must be quite the tease
Yeah.
to jump at someone for the first time. Got a hand developing. Phil continued for half. I was going to say half pot. Sorry, for third pot in his 3-bet pot on the 10-8-4 two-tone. Checks over to Freak on the Queen of Hearts turn, and Freak betting pot. Phil up 50k, just crossing the halfway point of today's session. Jack of clubs. Hello, river card.
Interesting. Does Phil need to find leads here?
I think he needs to find a decent amount of leads. Well, I think it depends whether or not Freak's checking back all of his 9x combos on this river. And I think
Yeah,
he
I
is
mean,
going to check back his 9x at a decent frequency.
after the big turn bet,
Yeah.
I imagine like the number of ace kings in Phil's continuing range.
Yeah, exactly.
Or ace king just starts to make up a fairly large percentage of his continuing range, relatively speaking.
Especially when it's gone third pot on the flop, check, call, turn. He's going to have, king high flush draws, ace high flush draws with gut shots, and really drilling this river and Freak in a very tough spot. Wouldn't surprise me as well to see Phil show up here with king XX, no straight, as a bluff, ace XS, but it does get through. Philly G now up around 65k on the day so far.
For me, I think it's just like the intensity of focus or thought or whatever that goes into it. Like poker's gotten so complicated that like I can't just play and like kind of cruise, like shut your brain off, and like if you're playing tennis, which I assume, since you mentioned it, you've played a fair bit, like you're probably not actively thinking the whole time about how to perfect your tennis game. Probably just playing tennis.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas like I feel like when you're like a self-critical poker player these days, like every single decision that you face, you're like trying to remember how to play perfect. It's just like so exhausting.
I'm trying to think how I perform in tennis in terms of mindset versus poker. With poker, for me personally, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I just try and play my A game in the heat of the moment the entire time, and then post session I will go back and look at leaks and areas that I need to improve on, rather than in a certain spot trying to think of what I could be doing differently, what I could potentially be doing wrong, or what I'm doing right. I just try and play the game that I know, if that makes sense. And then if it's wrong, I'll look at it later on in my HUD. I don't know if I'm just completely waffling away here, but whereas with,
No,
with
that
tennis,
makes
I'm
sense.
extremely competitive in tennis. Like I'll get more frustrated at tennis than I will at poker. Yeah, I don't know why. Smashed a few rackets in my time.
Yeah, having Flo, Steph for Life saying in the chat, it's how they feel about poker. Just like, I guess, like not being overly critical in the moment would allow for that kind of flow, which is great, I think.
Mm.
I certainly find myself, especially if you're like bouncing around different game formats and playing like, playing stuff that you haven't been like able to put on autopilot totally, then maybe that's like what eats up a lot more mental energy. Like if I'm playing tournaments one day and cash the next, and then, and then I sit down and start playing some heads up pot limit Omaha.
Wow.
Wow, this is
I did
quite
not expect that.
quite unusual. Holy.
I mean, this is just a board where we. I
Oh,
mean, we
Freak
we never
presumably
get
just
to.
didn't have aces, right? Or did he? Is Freak like? Is Freak sick enough to just like snap fold aces there and just like forget this hand?
I mean, see, you say that and we're laughing about it. That could what in heads up PLO.
Fill the airtime, but we do have tables back up. Big pot already with Freak betting 3/4 pot here on run it once. Looks like a 3-bet pot that went check on the flop. Based on the sizing, but I didn't have the table up before to see exactly what happened to get us here.
So it looks like no stack reset from Phil.
On one of the tables, yeah, it looks like they continued. Actually, I think that the tables closed in the lobby and then they reopened the same table.
Okay.
Perhaps. It might have just stayed open, actually.
Lies and deceit about stack resets. Oh, Phil Galfond, you
Interesting
naughty man.
one. Wise decision for Actionfreak to give up that bluff when Phil Rivers is set. Well, a full house.
That's always wise, Kevin. Your opponent's got second nut boat to check give up.
Got a big one brewing here. Actionfreak full pot on the turn. Pure blank on the river. Would certainly expect to see another barrel most of the time.
Does bet pot. Such a grim spot if we got like 2 pair, 7 or 8, and we unblock diamonds.
Yeah. I mean, these spots are like, they're common enough. Wow.
Oof.
Okay.
Oh,
I was gonna say they're common enough that we just, we kind of just have to figure out what we like bluff catching with and what we don't, and kind of stick to it, stick to the plan, generally speaking. But
so
clearly, this was not a bluff catching spot. This was a
give him the rope.
put it in spot.
Someone call the waiter.
I mean, thinnest hand that Actionfreak is taking for value here. Full pot for turn and river. Is it 3-4 or is it just a set?
I think we can with sets that have some blockers,
Yeah.
although it does feel thin. But yeah, I would assume 3-4 is comfortable betting pot there on the river as well. Yeah, someone call the waiter. Phil bringing his own sauce to the table. Debated the old check rizzle.
You know, I was just thinking that we hadn't seen a 4-bet today. And here's Phil bringing the good stuff.
Well, I mean, that if that's a board that is going to induce action.
That is a board.
That is board. Jack 9-5 two-tone. Well, we're happier when Freak leads. Let's put it that way. Sucks when he check then jams over the top. First
Wow.
one for Phil. And going to chop up the
Nice
second
chop
one.
on the second one, yeah.
So Phil going to win 75% of the pot.
Phil gotta just feel amazing having basically everything covered there, but Freak does squeak out a quarter of it.
Bouncy J said, imagine challenging top PLO heads-up players and being 500k up after 36k hands. Got a sneaky feeling that there aren't many people that can do that. Phil putting on a clinic yesterday and today. I mean, this match, since the start, since session 2, it's been in the green. Scrimmer saying, what are the odds that Action has a rest day tomorrow? I don't. It's really tough to try and step into the mindset of both Phil and Freak. His own source. It wouldn't surprise me to see Freak take a day off with there being what 3k hands left after today's session, and really just drilling the lab for a couple of days. As you guys now know, we have got a session booked on Sunday. So it would make sense. And I wouldn't blame him for it. Wow, what a sick cooler. Top 2 against top set.
Yeah.
27k in the middle. Phil's still up over 100k on the day. Somewhat fortunate to not double Freak up there.
Yeah, good that there was at least a straight on board to stop too much from going in, but nothing to be done there.
What happened, guys? So can I get a rest day tomorrow? Being a Twitch chat pro is exhausting. The table. Well, there's that 6th pot sizing from Phil this time. Just getting called from Freak. Backdoor diamonds and the 9-10 getting there on run it twice. Phil drilling this river. Put a ton of pressure on Freak this run out.
10-9 and diamonds, both very favorable for Phil.
Yeah, imagine betting pot and then just getting jammed on and you've got something like Queen High Diamonds. Just throw up and cycle.
Oh, yeah, it's one of those mostly side call situations.
I think it's just
is
more
like
annoyance out of it. You're like, well, I'm getting 8-1 on a call. Wow.
Look at what you've done, Henry.
Sorry, chat. Sorry, getting 6-1 on a call. No, 8-1 on a call.
It's an interesting one because I think that like the Like the theoretical math gets mistaken here a lot. Like Phil's getting an excellent price, obviously. To call the 8K, he needs to be good, whatever, 1 in 7 times or 1 in 8 times or whatever.
Yeah.
But from Freak's point of view, like this is a super risky bluff. Yeah, he just pays it off with the.
What are you going to miss the most?
I don't know. Just like being in the Amazon room is just amazing. Like I know it's like it's not like really a specific thing, but it's just like there's a very different vibe in the Amazon room in July than there is in like any other poker room in any other part of the world. It's a lot of hope.
There is, and hope is a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Big
Shout
bet from Phil there gets it done.
Shout out Morgan Freeman, Shawshank Redemption. What am I going to miss? Yeah, I mean, just catching up with everyone. You know, people that we battle with online, seeing their faces, seeing how people are getting on.
Yeah, it's always nice to like. A lot of people describe it as like poker player summer camp. Like it's always nice to catch up with the friends.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love tilting Andy Tillman and Jack Effel. It's one of my favorite things to do, is just like annoying them. So kind of get away with it. I make up for it. I'm always just like, oh, do you want me to go, grab you a beer or a coffee or something? But yeah, I'm gonna miss it. Gonna miss dropping 10 buy-ins within 5 hours of landing in Vegas, then crying in my hotel room for 4 days straight.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to miss how expensive it is, and I'm not going to miss losing. But I mean, we can always do that online, right? I'm not being stopped.
From the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Don't have to get on a flight. Wow. Set over set. Hang on. I assume both players have come into this match without a chip on their shoulder. Very respectful towards their opponent, and they're just trying to bring their A game without, the ego and cockiness of going into certain heads-up matches, which I've certainly been guilty of in the past.
Yeah, it's that used to be like a huge part of heads up culture. Now, Phil trying to revive it a little bit, but probably a little too respectfully, save for the Luke Schwartz interaction. There wasn't a lot of sincere shit talking going on. Whereas like the heads up challenges that got organized on like 2+2 10 years ago, like there was nothing but shit talking. Like there was no respect. It was the whole reason that the matches got got started was because there was no respect.
Potential for a 72K pot here if Phil decides to run it. 3-bet pot, check, half pot, repot. 21-6 in the middle. Phil is going to have quite a few hands that he has to go with this here.
Definitely want to get to.
Wow,
just calls. And the flush gets there.
SPR 0.6. 5 of clubs rolling off on the turn.
Are there hands that Freak has that need or want to shove here? It's a weird one. I guess there are.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Just has him drawing stone dead.
Okay, boys and girls. Strap yourselves in. Phil winning a 73K pot. I was about to say, I thought that turn card would favor Freak. Considering it's a 3-bet pot, I was assuming that he had something like kings, aces with king high or ace high clubs. Had king high clubs and just runs into the naked ace 9, no backup on the jack 7 tray.
Yeah, Phil just needed to. I mean, I guess he could have like turned open ended maybe, but like he was or a gutter with like the 9-7-6, but like he was just kind of hoping to smash that turn, and he did. Big pot here. Pretty fantastic turn card. Not surprised to see Actionfreak just committing.
Trying to fold out Phil's equity. Although, I mean, the price is, wow, okay. Phil
Okay.
drawing. So hang on. So we turn 2-pair open-ender 5 high diamonds against top set and a gut shot. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here, boys and girls. Another 60k pot. Run it twice. Chop chop. Phil with.
Run it twice going well for Phil there again. If we're using the logic that the first river off the deck is the true river, I think Phil has won 2 buy-ins already thanks to Rob Young's software update.
Yeah, I mean, money always going in that spot. I don't know. I can understand where you're coming from, because if you deviate from PO Solver and the GTO strategy that you've obviously been studying and working a lot on, when you have these gut feelings, I think it's going to be really difficult to balance. Wow, freak, giving Phil Roman. Wow,
Check back the straight with a club, huh?
the nut straight with a club.
Did I read that correctly? Is that a check back?
It was. What on? Man, Phil is just putting on a clinic today. There's been like 3 hands now where he should just be going for value a decent percentage of the time. And I don't know, there's that gut instinct.
But basically, like the best players who are playing the closest to GTO are still making feel-based decisions all the time.
Mm.
like constantly making feel-based decisions. Because you either get like thrown off track at some point, like maybe the way you've studied the spot it's supposed to go, half pot call, turn check, and now I'm here, but then your opponent throws you for a loop and they bet quarter pot or something, and now you're in a spot you've never studied.
Yeah.
Even if you're like one of the best GTO players in the world, like what do you do in that spot? Well, first you make a read on what your opponent would do with this bet size. You're already playing as a field player, right? Like the moment that happens. So like you need that skill set is still like super, super important, and it's like a huge percentage of where the best players get their win rates from.
Mm.
So Phil clearly realizing that since he's excellent at that, he is still one of the best at this game.
Yeah, I think the thing that I find funny about it all is, if a random poker player that I'd never met came up to me and said that their entire strategy was based off being a field player, I think the majority of us would just laugh people out of the room.
Yeah.
And then when you hear the likes of Greenwood, Galfond, talking about this strategy, it all of a sudden becomes, open, like an open conversation that it's actually a thing. And coming from a live background, I've always deviated from game theory and just gone based off of reads, or the neurolinguistic programming side of live poker, just like reading your opponent's body language or what have you. And I'm all for it, and I'll continue to be for that for the next however many years that I play poker.
Got to zoom in on this pot here on Run It Twice. Phil bet full pot on the turn, got check called by Freak. King of Hearts on the river, and he goes deep into the tank before potting it.
Yeah, Freak drilling this when he calls turn. 3-bet pot. Again, ace's range advantage. Slowed down on the turn when the wheel completed. Gonna also show up with the ace of hearts blocker at a decent frequency as well.
Yeah, this could very easily be a spot where he was taking a little extra time to allow himself to randomize or something, like, feeling like maybe he's supposed to bluff with the ace of hearts blocker sometimes, but not always. I don't know. Like it's it's definitely like you definitely see good players who are thinking about that kind of stuff take a little bit of extra time in like river decisions that they know would be complicated, even if he does just have like ace, maybe, or maybe he had like ace queen of hearts and he wanted to decide if, you know, having both nut hearts was a hand that should check or something. But yeah, that little extra time there that he took, I wonder if it was like necessary because he was randomizing something, or if it was just like a balancing thing
Feel
to
deep
show that he had
into the tank.
Yeah, he must have a sick decision.
Does fold. So Mike McDonald doing the math, saying I'd probably say you need something like 2 to 3 million hands to decisively distinguish a 2-3 big blind winner from a 2-3 big blind loser. That is insane.
Yeah, and like clearly pointing out why like only in simulation can we like accurately determine the quote unquote better player, because like by the time they've played 2 to 3 million hands, like the game's completely changed. Like the time frame that it would take to get an accurate result would render the initial results probably useless, because so much has changed by the time you get to the 1 million hand mark or the 2 million hand mark or whatever.
You used to get the notifications at 4 a.m. that so and so's sat down.
I can't be the only person who like has woken up in the middle of the night to like the fake sound of like a blinds posted alert in their own mind. It drives you crazy for sure.
You're like just coming into that like third level of REM, and your subconscious just like jolts you awake. You fire up the laptop.
I remember one of the better 25-50 sessions I had when I first moved. Like when I first moved to Toronto, I was pretty rarely playing it. I had to move down in stakes quite a bit after Black Friday. But once I was like first starting to play 25-50 again, there was like good action. So I was leaving my sound on overnight and I was sleeping with my laptop next to me. And the alert went off one time at like 2:30 in the morning or something, and I popped awake to play and won like 15K or something. It was like the best session I had the whole year.
Oh man, I bet you slept
Like
like a baby.
it was fine. Like that whole setup caused me so much stress for so long, and it was like it finally paid off. I was so happy.
I bet you slept like a baby that night.
I'll be honest, I probably turned the sound up even louder and like was more paranoid that they were going to come back or something.
Freak with the open-ender queen high flush draw doesn't get there. Phil's trips good at showdown.
One.
Droid Phoenix saying on a different stream yesterday, someone was talking about how Phil developed the next stage up. G-Bucks. Yeah, there's a thread on it. If you look on, I think it was on 2+2. Looks like we're done. Freak sat out. Phil up roughly 180k today's session. Maybe lost 15, 20k back there towards the end. Kevin, looks like we're GG's for the.
Phil's going to be wrapping up a real nice win here.
Yeah, big day. Back-to-back huge days for our man Phil Galfond. GG's in the chat, please, boys and girls, for Phil Galfond and Kevin Rabichow. Man, it's been a pleasure, and what a roller coaster of a day. Phil
do the post-game interviews here?
He does not.
Oh, too bad.
He will probably be joining us for the final session, but I think it's only fair, you know, with the amount of money that's on the line, side bets and matches coming up. Don't really want to be giving any information away, but we will get him on for maybe for the last session, maybe the last couple of sessions. But yeah, really enjoyed it, Kevin. And for those of you back home, once again, you could check out all of Kevin's content on Run It Once. He is an elite coach as well as an ambassador for Run It Once. And you can also see some spicy hero calls with bottom pair on YouTube if you do your research. Kevin, anything that you want to add before we call it a day?
That's good for me. Thanks, Henry. It was fun. Appreciate it.
Really had a good time. Guys and girls back home, we're back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European time. Until then, see you guys later. Peace.